Hello everybody and welcome to Yo Pops. How are you, Dad?
I'm good.
Good, you're looking good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Feeling good?
Always do.
Love that. We are back here with part 2 of our review of Inside Out. I have to say this, last week was amazing.
Okay.
And some of the feedback that we've had, because obviously people haven't seen the visual episode, but they've heard the audio episode, which for me is, I think it's a greater compliment, because a lot of the time you can be distracted by what you see and visually kind of feeling something. But when you're just listening to something, if it's not really good and full of substance, I think you can kind of drift off and be like, oh, I'll check that out later. Yeah. And we're in a really visual moment, I think, in time as well. So just
wonderful.
Well done.
Wonderful.
What we're going to do today is we're going to finish part 2 of Inside Out. And there were some amazing concepts that my dad was leaning into last week that we just kind of want to explore and break out a little bit more. And I've actually garnered a couple of questions from some of you that have hit us up on social sites and stuff. And I'll be putting some of those questions to my dad at the end. How are you?
I'm good.
How's your week been?
It has been wonderful.
Why has it been wonderful?
Because the sun's been shining. And whenever time the sun shines, it gives me that extra
energy, that boost.
And yes.
Ready to go forth and conquer.
Absolutely.
Love that. I want to jump into very quickly one of the things that you left off our last episode speaking about. It was one of your famous acronyms, and you spoke about P.C.S.
Yes.
Okay, problem, cause, solution.
Excellent.
Now, I was listening.
Yeah, I can tell. Yes.
Now, one of the things that I also wanted to break open was right before you gave us the P.C.S. acronym, you were speaking about depression linked to our past, as stresses to our present, and anxieties to our future. 3 weeks ago, I asked you something where I said, Dad, do you think people can be happy? And you said, of course they can. But a lot of people choose not to be happy. And I said to you, why would a person choose not to be happy? Because you said they're too busy anticipating what hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
And so I really felt quite a strong thread and link from that statement even to the P.C.S. acronym, and then the conceptual idea of how depression is kind of rooted and seeded in our past time, how that then obviously produces stress in our present and our everyday. And then that obviously builds up the anxiety wall for the future. So what I wanted to speak to you about was just to ask if you could expand a little bit more on the P.C.S. concept.
Okay, just before I get to the P.C.S. concept, the present, and we talk about happiness, because I think it's really important, is that I believe that 90% of people's concerns, stress, and eventually anxiety lend itself to that which, as I said, has not happened yet. So if you imagine, for a lot of people, if they were living in the now, and you reverse the 90% anxiety, which is not something that hasn't happened yet, and let it become the 90% in the now, and the 10% would be like thinking about the future, which everybody thinks about the future in one way or the other. It is even to plan. Yes, when you think about it, but you would have been focusing 90% of that energy in the now, and that would bring people into that state of happiness. You see, so rather than just living on the periodic bout of happiness, you'd be in a state of happiness. Yes. Now, so with that, it will be far easier for you to deal with the P.C.S., which is the problem, cause, solution dynamics. So much more easier, because you'll have both time, focus, and you'll be able to see, as they commonly say, the wood for the trees. You know what I mean? So I would say then that when you're going to deal with that, because the P.C.S. is like a formula. You see what I mean? And formulas are used to work out equations, as it were, and come to the right answer. And so if one applies that formula to whatever situation they find themselves in, then they would be amazed at the immediate benefits that they would find, because that would immediately, once you understand the cause, then you're working on the solution. The solution will always be bringing you joy,
right,
and happiness.
Right. So do you think then people are, or we are complicit in our overindulgence in what I call the present stress that potentially, how do I put this? Imagine you've got a tree, you've got an apple tree, but for whatever reason, the apple tree keeps producing bad fruit.
Yes.
Then for a lot of people, I feel like it becomes more of a struggle to just get all the apples off the tree, instead of saying, well, no, there is something systematically wrong with either the ground or the actual tree itself. But
disease prone.
But the manifestation of the thing always seems to maybe take more of center stage when we're trying to solve problems. So for example, let's say you have a cold, Dad. When I was younger and I had a cold, I was very fortunate that I had parents that understood like immune system and what are you putting in your body.
Yeah.
But every time I went to school, first thing my teacher, she wouldn't ask me if I had some soup. Do you have cough sweets? Do I need to hold your cough sweets? Because what that would do would then obviously take care of the manifestation of what the thing is. But I wasn't dealing with
the cause. Yeah.
So then how do we shift that, since that society pushes all of us into dealing with the manifestation of the thing rather than going to the root? How would a person navigate from going, okay, this is where it is, but that's where I need to get to?
In many cases, there is a certain level of divisiveness in what people see and what people are exposed to.
Okay.
You get what I mean? So let's take, for example, medication.
Yeah.
Now, medication we know is good and it helps to a certain degree, you see. Now, the society or the pharmaceutical world doesn't put everything in there to really get you better. You see what I mean? It puts enough to ease the pressure. You see what I mean? But shortly you're going to be coming back again. And that is how that industry continued to evolve.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? While, for example, if you were to go to the actual medication, you can take it and it's going to solve your problem.
Right.
You see what I mean? But then, because it's an institution, it's looking for thinking about its margin, its profit margin, so to speak. So in the case of people per se, number one is understanding themselves, who they are. You see what I mean? And if you have a right perspective on who you are, then you are going to understand that you're not made for these traumas. You're not made for these states that, unfortunately, society pushes you into. You are made to be a complete being in the sense that everything about you has been made for perfection. Really.
Right, you've said some absolutely massive concepts there that no one can eat that in a single bite. So like, first, okay, no, because obviously I can kind of follow the track. So I'm just like, oh wow. When you say that when you said that people don't know enough about themselves, how do you mean?
Okay, let me give an example. I was teaching the other day, and one of my listeners came up with the notion that what I was saying was gaslighting and manipulation. So I said to him, I said, okay, let's address that problem, because that's what you think. I said, okay, I'm going to ask you just a few questions. I said to the guy, I said, do you know who you are? I said, in the first instance, I said, when you were born, before you could discover who you are, you were put into a system that began to manipulate you. is called kindergarten. And then when they perfect that level, they move you up into primary school and continue the manipulation process. Tell you how to sit, how to stand, how to walk, how to dress, how to think, everything about it. And when they finish, with that process, they push you further up to secondary school, where they then begin to perfect, really nail down
higher educational manipulation.
Exactly what you're going to go till they get to university, and then they perfect it. And by this time now, you are perfectly made to what society gonna push you into. I said, now, if that is not manipulation, then nothing else is. And I said, okay, imagine after university, you're told that you're a doctor. You're gonna be curing people. Yes. You're gonna keep people alive. I said, how is it then people are dying? Yes, I mean, so that there must be something false or incomplete about what you've been told. Yes, I mean, because were you told that you can only assist life rather than you can give life?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, and I said, that is the reality of manipulation. I said, I'm not doing any of that to you or to anybody else. I said, then let's look at the fact of you personally. I said, tell me something, tell me who you are, because your mother don't know, your father don't know, your surrounding don't know. So you...
Okay, how do you mean there, Dad? Because if someone said to me, okay, tell me 3 people that would be able to tell who you are, I would probably put you in the list of people that would be like, my dad would be able to give you a fair... So when you say that, because I know you have how do you mean when you say that?
Because you see, people have a limited understanding
right, got you.
of their manifestation.
Got you.
But the real core of a person, it's not determined by the science or by your biological parents, because they are only the recipient of who you are.
Right.
You were made complete without their input or even the depth of their knowledge. If you ask a mother how many cells is in their, how much thing, and the list goes on. So in reality, when I begin to point out to him that, look, these are some of the things that makes you who you are, but it's only God can give you the answer in reality, because even the scientist is now using what God used to make you who you are as part of their security process, like your fingerprint, your
the 4 IDs that you have can't be replicated.
So when you begin to understand that you're more than just an object of society, but in fact, society should be made to be the object for your benefit. And it's only when you begin to look at it from that perspective, then you understand that everything is created for you. You get what I mean? And you can determine how, when, where, what is going to happen in your life.
Just as you were talking about the person that was corresponding with you whilst you were teaching, because of my time in education and teaching people, Dad, in that one statement, I could almost follow his trigger line to the initial person that did manipulate him.
Yeah.
And it's funny because sometimes we use certain words in certain contexts so much that the word automatically has a negative connotation. Indeed. Does that make sense?
Of course.
So for example, I remember when we were having a conversation and you spoke to me about the real understanding of being taken for granted.
Yeah.
That on the basis of it, when a person goes, you're taking me for granted, there's such a negative understanding and bridge connection that you miss the actual root of what they're saying, which is you've become so reliably consistent that I no longer have to even think about managing how you feel, what you do, how I then come back and speak about what you do, which also means that, especially with what you're doing when you teach, you can tell that there's a person that has been shaped into something they could never become. That thing then became a prison that stopped them from being able to, like you say, explore and discover that core predestined purpose.
Indeed.
Because, Dad, I remember being at school, there were certain things I wanted to do that without my teachers turning around and going, you're never going to be able to do that. They were trying to kind of be like, I don't think you're going to be able to do that. But simply because I had the type of personality of like, you can't tell me anything. You're just the person that's been employed to make sure I don't do anything too crazy.
Indeed, yes.
So how then, Dad, do we start allowing people to go behind the veil of their own predetermined purpose and identity?
Very good question.
I thought so.
Yes. Very good question. Now,
why are you so quiet, Jamal? we hide him for. You don't want people to know you're here, huh? Huh?
I still by the tan. I still think
my dad thinks Jamal's spray tanning. A couple of weeks ago, it was me with the eyebrows, and we all know that's not the case. But I'll be honest with you, I looked at Jamal's colour and I was like, brother, is there some?
Indeed. Now, I really think that when we deal with the issue of people, and in terms of how do they deal with where they are at, you see, it is all to do with perception. How do you perceive yourself? Now, most people's perception is to do with what we call the 3 phase.
Okay.
And phase 1, from the mind of God to conception. Phase 2, from conception to birth.
Okay.
Phase 3, from birth to death.
Got you.
You see, so when most people think of themselves, they think within the boundaries or the limitation of the 3rd conception.
Okay.
The 3rd conception is basically an environment where you're exposed to all kinds of situation and issues. For example, your parents and those around you that you come into, you don't know what they have been through, or what has influenced their whole character. You see, now they can only teach you what they know. They can only give to you what they have. And so if you consider your life to be based on, from the time you were born into a family that may even be dysfunctional, to an environment that does not think much of you for different reasons, it may be your race, creed, or color, etc., then you're going to take those on board.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
It's going to define how you see.
Exactly, and that's how you're going to see yourself going forward. And anything that does not conform to that, you look at it strange. But the real fact is that is not you. You see, the real you is from phase 1 and 2. So when I bring, I use the word deliverance, but when I help people, when I counsel people.
Why wouldn't you use the word deliverance?
Because you're delivering somebody from something that is not good for them. So that's what it really means. So if you've been brought up and made to think of things that is not good for you, you need somebody to undo that. So they're delivering you from, as I said, bondage, or being an imprisonment whether within your own mind or your environment, etc. And it comes to the fact that if you really have an understanding that you are not determined by your 3rd phase, from your environment, but you're determined by your creation, and that is phase 1 and 2. You see, so when I speak to people or constantly, I say to you, do not see yourself, because if you see yourself from just phase 3, which is from birth to where you are, then you're gonna have a problem accepting that that's not you. You are a victim
of
that environment to which you were exposed to. So if you were born and I immediately take you to China, then you're gonna grow up speaking Mandarin.
Yes.
You're gonna be eating with chopsticks, etc., etc.,
because you're going to adapt to the cultural environment that is surrounding you.
Absolutely. So, but if I can get you to understand that, you know what, you might have been brought up in China, but the real thing is that you are British. And let's understand from a British perspective, you're going to use knife and fork. Your whole thing is going to be different. So let's get you back to who you are.
Right.
You get what I mean? So the moment that a person understands that before they were exposed to their environment, they were perfectly destined for greatness, for goodness, for happiness, etc. And it is only understanding that not only themselves being victims of the environment, but those who they were exposed to themselves are victim. And that leads into things like forgiveness, and which is quite important in terms of knowing who you are. Okay, so once you can understand that what I was exposed to is not really me, it's the fact that I just happen to be in that environment, but the real me is in there somewhere, and somebody just need to let me know that. How can I get it out? How can I come to who I am? And it is that focusing point that is going to change that. Number one, I don't have to be what people expect me to be. I will be what I believe I should be. What I am. Just like you said, the things that people want to push you into may not be what you want to.
Yeah.
And that is oftentimes makes the difference between what you call success in many cases and mass failure.
Yes.
You see what I mean? Because if somebody gives you the opportunity to naturally work hard, develop what your core being and your core interests, you're going to be successful at it.
That's true.
You see what I mean? Rather than allowing somebody. So identifying the problem is one thing. Finding the cause is the great thing. Then you're leading straight into the solution.
Of course you are. I wanted to ask very quickly, just on a recapping level, the 4 phases of your creative journey.
Yeah.
Phase 1 is the mind of God 2.
Conception.
Okay.
Yeah.
Phase 2 is?
From conception to birth.
Phase 3 is?
From birth to death.
And phase 4 is?
From death to eternity.
Now, you said that most of us, what we create, that becomes the prison that holds us.
But the environment in which we have been exposed to.
Is phase?
That's phase 3.
Imagine the stage or phase that has the most variable information is what we invest the most currency into.
Absolutely. I think you should take over this.
I believe so.
No, I think you should take. I don't need to be here now, does it?
No,
I mean, when he grasps it on that kind of level, all right, go ahead. You're doing good.
No, the reason why I say that is for this level, Dad, is that as you're talking, I'm learning as well as I'm listening and I'm partaking in what is happening. The first 2 stages, the first stage, based on how you've explained it, is all God.
Yes.
Which means there is complete absolution.
Absolutely.
There is nothing there. There is no hint of bad, ill intent, malice,
you got it,
bitterness, or anything like that. So that's perfect.
Yes.
You then get into the incubatory stage where now the collaboration between obviously parents, you're the miracle that's happening in the dark.
Absolutely.
No one's doing anything bad to you in there because the only thing that you're full of is expectation, hope, and promise.
Precisely.
Which then means that, like you're saying, that third phase, where it's the practical application or example of the experiment.
Yes.
You can't put yourself in a position where you relegate so much prep work down to moments that have really come for you to overcome.
Absolutely.
For you to understand that your greatness does not lie in a temporal moment of discomfort or indecision.
Or exactly, are dependent on somebody affirming you or unaffirming you. You see, that is where a lot of people sort of think, because the environment has already created in you this level of insecurity.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? And the moment that life and society does not go in that direction, you feel like you're out, like fish out of water. You feel like, well, you know what do I do? Because that's what I know. You get what I mean?
It's just what you were saying, Dad. It led into what we were speaking about when we were reviewing the film last week. And we spoke about the turns that the little girl was taking.
Right.
And how the changing her environment and her going to high school caused her to have certain reactions that she was questioning the foundations and the fundamentals of who she was.
Yeah.
And when she lent into the variableness of the environment, everything was going wrong.
Yeah.
Everything was going wrong, Jan. The emotional messages that she was sending herself, to how she was acting with other people in her interactions. Yeah. And the only time that she was able to regain control again was firstly when she allowed joy to come back to lead the control system. Right. And also she stopped leaning into what anxiety was giving her, which was present calculations of temporal environmental situations.
And future potential, you see. And that is where a lot of people suffers, because the moment that she was leaning into anxiety, I mean, she was no more in control of that core person, which is joy. I mean, because she's seeing all of the potential insecurities. For example, ignore your friends, because I mean, you know, they're not going anywhere fast. You know, stick to stick to these people, because they can get you to a higher place, a better place. And she left off the now and living in the future. And that, what, as you could see, the mess that it was sort of creating in her mind.
Stat, how many people are making poor decisions now based on what they think they're heading towards?
I mean, the percentage rate is incredible. I mean, and that is the very reason why most success are just down to about 10%.
Dad, how do we stop it?
Well, I think we have to do things like what we're doing and get it out there to people to understand that, look, there are things in the past that by adapting certain strategy, you can fix it. So, you know, the past is important if you understand how to let it become your lesson. You see, this is important, and I want you to get that. You see?
That you can only, if you allow it to, you've got to let it become your lesson.
Your lesson. So in other words, experience teaches wisdom. You see?
But Dad, how do you encourage a person to learn something that scares them?
Okay, let's say yesterday you put your hand on the stove, the fire, and it burns you. Yes?
Let's talk about when I jumped into the pool as a kid.
No, that was crazy. that was not from my side of the family. I can tell you that.
All right, cool. Let's go back to your example.
So I was saying that it's a bit like when you jump into the pool, you know, when you were young and crazy. That's it. As I said, it was not side. It must be noted, it was not from my side of the family. Okay. So,
hey, you're the one that has to live with my mum. It's fine. Like, I'm good. I'm gonna still get my dinner, and I'm gonna get it ordered.
Indeed,
Mum.
Okay.
He's talking wild.
All right. Okay. So, what did you learn from that?
That it was deep.
Yeah.
And I should have measured the depth of the water before I thought I could just go in.
Before you could measure the depth, you should do something else.
Ask?
Think.
I think. Yeah, true.
Yes, I mean, you did not think. Yes, I mean, help him, Lord. Yeah. Because you see, had you put that thought into process, then you would have think, okay, how deep is it? How tall am I? Can I swim?
These are good questions.
Yeah, you see, I know. Thank you. Okay, but you've learned so much from that, what would be considered to be bad experience, right? Or you could allow that experience to dominate your life, where you'll never go near the water again.
True.
You mean, you would not learn to swim, and the list goes on. See, so when a person look at their past, and that is why we have to divide the past into those three phases. You see, because if you can't see beyond your birth, you see, then you're gonna think, you know what, this is how I got to live with me for the rest of my life. Which is not true, because it's not your birth development that necessarily make you who you are. in fact, if I were to take it on a spiritual level, it's because of who you are. Why you are exposed to some of the things that you're exposed growing up.
Agreed. Dad, I remember we were talking, I think it was a month ago, and I was talking to you about some conflict resolution I was trying to do. Mm-hmm. And in calming down and taking my emotional pallet out of the situation, I was able to gain a level of clarity where I looked at the situation in full width, mm-hmm. and I could see where the conflict was coming from, because the person's perception was telling me how they see it, yet my opinion was giving a perspective which tells them how I saw it.
Right.
So one person's talking in the present tense, mm-hmm. whilst the other person's talking in the past tense, expecting the other person to match the tense they're talking in. Indeed. And nobody's hearing anything.
Yeah.
And the inability to take myself subjectively out of it, mm-hmm. to look at it in kind of clear view, is what I think would allow a lot of people to be able to almost separate the pain of what happened from the lesson that came from the things that have happened. Indeed. Because even in leaning into what you said for a minute on a spiritual level, and if we look at it within our creative dimension, that's what in our core, what we are.
Indeed.
So then you measure your environment and even some of the intensity of it, mm-hmm. according to what potentially is in you, on the basis of, like you said, phase one, being coded and programmed by something that means nothing more than the very best, Dad.
Indeed.
And us as humans, do you know how many of us wouldn't be okay with knowing we're planning the most amazing thing for a person, and they'll never know it's us,
right?
Or never wanting the credit.
Indeed. Yeah. Can you imagine, for example, when you look at the master piece of engineering that you are?
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And
that's a great way of terming it as well.
Yes, and the mind or the intelligence behind your creation was for you to just come and live 20, 30, 40, 50 years just shifting pieces of paper in a bank. Now, it is almost inconceivable.
Yeah.
So therefore, that person, as much as they get paid to stay in that state, you get what I mean? All of who they are will never see the light of day until they go back to their creator. I remember seeing a picture of a little boy in Africa who built a plane, the shape of a plane, out of drinks bottle. And the way he scaled it was most impressive. This little boy is in the villages in Africa, no special school, no anything. But within his core, he has that incredible creative element.
Wow.
That if the right person get around him,
Dad, he's already proven what his engineering capability is going to be.
Indeed. And his picture of his little plane went viral on the internet. But as I looked through the comments, I didn't see nobody saying, you know what, let me sponsor him to go to an appropriate school or place to develop that core ability that is within him. And it's the same way with so many people. And that is why most people's excuse for not being successful is because they don't want the responsibility.
That's a big word.
Of success.
Because it is a responsibility.
It is a responsibility.
It takes management.
Absolutely. Commitment, dedication.
Discipline.
Yeah, indeed.
All of the things that do not give you present gratification.
Absolutely. And that is what it is. Now, when you consider pain and joy, they're almost the two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
you want to have a fit body like yourself and Jamal. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'll give that to you free. Okay. Now,
just out here trolling.
Now, that didn't just happen by accident.
No.
It caused pain.
Do you know the amount of times he pulls his neck and everything else, Dad, when he goes to the gym?
I think it does something that's causing it. That's affecting him. But the pain it causes him to get to that level, and equally at the same time, sometimes when I'm talking to you, you're in the gym and you're working it. I don't know if you're sending me subtle messages or what it is, but he does. He might have called me from the gym. Where are you? I'm on the treadmill. I'm thinking, are you sending subtle messages to me?
So he just spoke about responsibility, right? For what he's doing and how it even affects us. Jam, I phoned you and Dad. When I'm on tour, sometimes I'll call you at 2, 3 in the morning.
Absolutely, you do.
The schedule is relentless.
Yeah.
And according to the invisible gift that we feel, but we can't see my dad's gift. We experience the manifestation of it because we sit here, we record him, we hear his words, they touch us in our soul and they move into our spirit. But that is housed in a natural temple. My mum was she was very regimental with how the house was clean and how we divided the chores between myself and my brothers. Why? Because the house needed to reflect the substance it was looking after. So when I lean into my father about having him in a place of just, what's the word I'm looking for? Upscaled balance, if you will.
He's trying to be very sophisticated.
Very,
what he wanted to say.
Listen, because my dad.
You know what he wanted to say.
So as we go to upscale balance, Jam.
I like upscale balance.
You see what I'm saying though?
Did you get that?
I realized the world is going to put a demand on him now that the house would not be able to consistently keep up with. So then if I can see this coming, why would I not sit there and go, redo the foundations, do the roof tiles, build the conservatory at the back, build the bunker underneath, build the panic room on the side, and let's add some garages.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And that's why I do it.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's move in. So we said that joy and pain.
You see, I didn't want none of that. He didn't want none of it. He came in like, and he just went, I'm just going to go for the toilet quickly. As you were saying, during pain.
It's a joy and pain. So you go through the pain, but now you find joy.
Yeah.
You see me? And that is what oftentimes when I sort of speak with people, counsel people, I said, yes, let's go back to your past because we're going to deal with the pain of your past that has had you locked into your cage or your prison. And yes, you're going to feel emotional about it. You're going to even feel the pain of it because you've been through it. And but once you deal with it, you see me, then you're going to feel the joy, and the joy is going to be longer lasting, more productive than the pain of your past.
Do you know what we need to do in your lives? And we'll have to set this up also with Kate's as well. We'll have to get something, we'll put it together. There are things that you're teaching that I think there are a lot of people that would love to expound and expand on this, Dan. And I think some of the prep work that people I think can do before obviously we start providing them some of the live elements to be able to come to and push us through. And also we've got some literature coming a little bit later on in the year. We're just kind of trying to not get super excited with ourselves and put everything out at once, but we have literature to go with a lot of these concepts and stuff my dad's been speaking about. Dad, I think so many people are going to, firstly, they're going to find hope. And if you should ever be in a position where you can hope again,
yes,
it transacts belief. And if you believe enough, it will manifest into an action.
Indeed.
And that's where everything changes. And there are things that you're saying that a lot of people are going to identify with. And I think it's also going to help them massively. I do have to ask you a question that came to me from one of your subscribers and followers. and they said, please, and I love how everybody's calling you Pops now. I sit there and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. And the other reason why is because I call you Dad more than...
Absolutely.
And more so, the Pop thing just came in as just like I don't even know how. But the fact that people have like latched onto it, I'm just like, oh, and I know you as well, so I know you're not going to be loving it over here. I know you're going to be like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. So the question was, which emotion was your favorite?
Joy.
Why? And why do you look so serious? For someone that says joy, why would you, joy? You don't have any.
Because you see, joy, it releases all kind of chemical within you that are positive. You see what I mean? Now you see, all these emotion releases different things in your body. For example, fear. You see what I mean? It gives you something like, fight or flight. Right. So he does that. So joy, for me, is what life is about. And I believe that it is not only within your emotion, it also is within your spirit. You see, and so that is what I would lean into. And if you notice that all the other emotions are designed to disrupt joy.
Yeah. She manages the rest of them. Joy is like a self-contained immunity bubble. It will protect you from everything environmental.
Absolutely.
For this reason, you need one thing to mind joy. Gratitude.
Yeah.
One thing to be grateful for. And in being thankful and being grateful, you mind joy, because joy also in the basis of what it's contentment through peace. So you can outlast, you can outweigh anything.
Indeed.
Dad, you're amazing to me. Love it. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Also, please subscribe to our Patreon links. My father's socials, Instagram at Bishop Elliot Williams, YouTube at Bishop Williams, TikTok at Bishop Elliot Williams. And we plan to give you actually, you're going away.
Yes. I'll be in Zimbabwe.
So my dad's going to be away for a couple of weeks. Now we've got some very cool things planned, but at the same time, we'll be making sure that he sends some clips and some other bits and pieces. So we'll be keeping you all apprised and updated with what he's doing. Dad, travel safely.
Thank you.
Since you're my co-host, it's going to be a bit weird all of a sudden if I had someone.
I can do it from
No, you can't.
Zimbabwe.
Dad, no. We don't have the equipment for that yet, people. When we do, we'll facilitate such things. But travel safely. Miss you lots. Miss you already. Guys, have an amazing week. And like I said, feel free, please subscribe to our Patreon and all our other subscribable accounts and platforms. We will see you soon. And the last word from my dad.
Stay blessed.
Bye, guys.